everyone. Happy New Year. It's D-Rex and welcome to a new decade. New year, new direction. This will be season 2, episode 1 of D-Rex Roars. We're gonna start off pretty rough. We have our first celebrity death of the year, Nick Gordon, who was the boyfriend to the late Bobbi Kristina Brown, who passed away at the age of 30 years old. Bobbi Kristina Brown was the daughter of Whitney Houston. Both Bobbi Kristina Brown and her mother Whitney both died in an eerie yet identical way. Both the autopsy confirmed that they died face down in a bathtub, unresponsive, and the drugs in their system's main components being heroin and alcohol. What makes this even more crazy is that both deaths, Nick Gordon was present during those two instances. Nick Gordon was found guilty by a civil court in Brown's death and ordered to pay $36 million to her estate. He was found dead on January 1st of 2020. There has been further reports of the nature to his death. Gordon allegedly overdosed on drugs and survived before dying on January 1st. Daily Mail mentioned there was a female with him when he overdosed. She called 911, she called emergency services, and left before they arrived. Gordon was dead for 15 minutes before pronounced dead in a hotel room. Medical response mentioned that they received this call, and when they arrived, they revived him only for him to die in the hospital. Nick Gordon was also cremated on January 9th of 2020. What makes the situation weird is that August 2018, Max Lamas died, and he was also in the room with Nick Gordon when both Whitney and Bobbi died. Very spooky. There have been conflicting reports regarding the final moments of Nick Gordon's death. He was dropped off at the door of the emergency room by his friends, and his friends drove off. Some mentioned too that he was with a female at the hotel room. The female called 911, and then the female left before the police and the 911 dispatchers could arrive at the scene. Either way, the whole thing does seem very suspicious, because if you even think about it, if you witness that a friend of yours or somebody that you've been hanging out with is overdosing and they could possibly die, you would take the time to check on them to make sure they're okay. So the fact that they ran quickly the second they found out that ambulances were going to come and they're most likely going to ask questions, it does make them look very guilty. There was also a toxicology report that mentioned he was oozing black stuff from his mouth, which is a response to an overdose. Now, I studied pharmacology in my early 20s, and I've seen how different chemical components and drugs react, but I've never heard of black stuff oozing from the mouth. Sounds like an exorcism. Bottom line, this situation is insane. The only question I have is how many young people got to die from drugs for society to get it? It's not cool. It's not a joke. This is life. Junior Walker, the brother of Nick Gordon, had to start off the year with a funeral.
Now, as I was saying, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad. Because drugs are bad, okay? It's a bad thing to do drugs, so don't be bad by doing drugs, okay? That'd be bad. Drugs are bad. Okay?
Remember the DARE program? The DARE program was basically a program that was a failure within itself. All they talked about was don't do drugs because drugs are bad, and they would give you tips on how to say no to drugs. The only problem with that is that all it did was blame the child for being peer pressured into taking drugs rather than giving them the information that they needed. It was the equivalent to your mom saying, clean your room because I said so. But when my mom explained clean your room because a messy room was unpresentable and it was a reflection of how you perceived yourself and how others perceived you, I got that. So when adults tell kids don't do this because I said so, all it does is enforce a power complex in a half-assed way. It shows you don't have the patience to speak to your child and they're not worth your time. When the effort isn't there, kids don't see the point of listening. When that happens, they end up rebelling or experimenting on their own. So if a child especially doesn't have good role models and drugs are accessible, it's not going to stop them from doing it. If they're 18 and struggling with drugs, they're already far gone. Living in the city, you saw people in the streets doing the Matrix, can't formulate a sentence, have sores growing on their fucking face. They look like patient zero. The images are distressing and their health mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually was deteriorating. So saying that obviously made me not want to touch that stuff at all. I knew that was going to destroy my life and I was not going to have my life altered in a negative way because of one negative decision by peer pressure. This story is still fresh and there is a lot to take in, but I really do hope people, especially young folks, start learning and start taking this seriously, okay? You guys need to take this seriously rather than making this a trend. So what do you feel about this whole situation? And I will talk to you in the next video. And for the family of Mr. Nick Gordon, I really do hope that he rests in peace. And I do pray that you guys have the healing that you do need. Have a great day and Happy New Year once again.